Hello and welcome back everyone for your favorite chess YouTube channel, Chess Sensei. For today's video, I am going to show you how to win quickly and insult your opponent with brutal checkmates and winning their queen early on the game with the King's Gambit. So first of all, what is the King's Gambit? The King's Gambit comes after e4, e5 and pawn to f4 from white. Now, what is the idea behind the King's Gambit? The idea behind the King's Gambit is you are trying to gambiting a pawn, but you will get a huge center and maybe regain this pawn back. Also, when you castle, then your rook is going to be put in and put pressure on the f5. Now, first of all, black first move is bishop to c5. So black is trying to take advantage of white weakening this diagonal by pushing pawn to f4. But if you know what are you doing, which I am hopefully here to help you, so bishop to c5 is trying to weaken this diagonal. So here we wanna just go knight to f3, just putting more pressure on the pawn on e5. Also, the queen can't go to h4 to deliver a check on the white's king. Here black goes pawn to d6, trying to ensure that the e5 pawn is protected. Now here, of course, you don't wanna capture twice, because if you capture twice, then at the end of the variation, black is going to have queen to h4 again. And we don't really want to do that, so here we wanna play pawn to c3, to try to build the center again with pawn to d4. So the first trick is black goes queen to e7, and actually queen e7 is a logical move, right? White's trying to go d4, and with the move queen to e7 played, if white goes d4, then black is just saying, I will capture your pawn on d4, and your pawn on e4 will be loose. So here white is saying, you know what, who gives a shit about the e4 pawn? Go ahead and take it, I don't care, I just want a huge center early on the game. So here black takes on d4 and white takes on d4, and now black grabs the pawn on e4. Now here you can block with your bishop or you can block with your queen, but both are not good moves. The best move here is to go king to f2, essentially pawn clouding, but this is just game over for black. And white is a game over. First of all, white is threatening to take this bishop, and also this e-file is now open for the h1 rook. So here bishop to b6 is played, so putting pressure and pinning this pawn. And here we play bishop to b5. And after bishop to b5, the white bishop is delivering a check for the king. And now if black goes pawn to c6, then after rook to e8, then this queen will have to give itself for its own love. And now white is just winning a queen. Also, you might be asking that, okay, I can play king to d8 and black is out of danger, right? But unfortunately, there is rook to e1 again, and after rook to e1, then this queen is attacked, which after the lady moves, then there is rook to e8, which is just checkmate. Now let's come back to the main position. After pawn to f4 from white, then here black is grabbing the pawn on f4. Now after black takes on f4, now we will just play knight to f3 and just enjoy a slow developing move. But it is not really slow because, we are just developing our piece. We are ready to get our bishop out and castle and put pressure on the f-pawn. Now here black plays pawn to g5, trying to be aggressive and also saying, you know what, when you play d4, then your pawn on f4 is going to be hanging. And, I would just want to make sure that I defend my f4 pawn and just play h6 and bishop to g7 and develop normally. But unfortunately, this is not what is going to be happen. Then here we are going to go bishop to c4, continue developing and putting a huge pressure on this pawn on f7, which is the main weakness for black. As we will see, there is going to be a huge attack on f7 on the most of the lines. So after bishop to c4, black plays a pawn to h6, trying to defend his pawn on g5. Now here we want to play h4, and after h4 we are attacking the g5 pawn. So if black tries to develop with knight to c6, then here we will take, and black can take back as he will lose the rook on h8. And also he can't take with the queen because the knight is covering the g5 square. So here black plays pawn to f6, defending his g5 pawn. So if white intended to capture, then he will recapture with his f pawn. Now here there is a really brilliant move, which is knight to e5. Now, after knight to e5, the game is essentially over. And why it is over? Because black is neglecting the development, and here he has to accept the knight, otherwise the knight is coming to f7 no matter what he plays, and forking the queen and the rook. So here he captures the knight, and this is just going to be brutal for black, and as I promised, you will deliver a brutal checkmate, because here the king is forced to e7, and after queen to f7, then the king will have to walk away at the center of the board. Yeah, the king looks super crazy on d6. It's super funny actually, because the king on d6, why he's coming to d6, but he's just getting checkmated after king to e7, queen takes e5 check, and this is just a checkmate. Now let's just come back for our main position, and after pawn to f4, and black accepts the gambit. Now here we want to play knight f3 again, and after g5 you can also play pawn to h4. And this is a complete another variation. The logic behind pawn to h4 is we are trying to hit the base of the chain. And you know what? When we play d4, we are trying to win the pawn on f4. Now after pawn to g4 from black, and we are just going to put our knight on the center, right? We are sacrificed the pawn. We are trying to deliver checkmate. So we want to put our pieces always forward and not backwards. Now here, black goes knight to f6, defending his pawn on g4, but in case of you take, he is also taking on e4. Now here white takes on e4, black takes on e4, and here we want to play pawn to d3, just inviting the knight to come in, and after the knight goes to g3, then bishop takes f4, hitting the knight again, and after knight takes h1, if black gets greedy and grabs the rook, here there is queen to e2, and after queen to e7, this queen is now pinned. So if we try to look closely, then this knight can join the attack, and indeed knight to f6 is going to be the move. And after king to d8, then bishop takes c7 is a beautiful move, because the king is basically checkmated. He can't really play any other moves rather than accepting the bishop, and after he accepts the bishop, then knight to d5, and you will win the queen, and with it you win the game. So let's come back to our main position after white plays pawn to f4 and black accepts the gambit, and we are going to go knight to f3 again. And now after g5, h4, pawn to g4 from black, here we are going to go knight to e5 and jump to the middle of the board. Of course, we don't want to go backwards, as we are gambiting a pawn. At the end of the day, we must attack, right? So here we showed knight to f6. Now bishop to e7 is probably also fine. But now in this position, black decides to go pawn to d6, hitting the knight. So of course we are playing the king's gambit, so how dare you can come back and gain your pawn, but after h5, then knight to f2, then how dare you put this knight on f2, right? You played the king's gambit, so you are going for black, you are going for the kill. So after pawn to d6, you are going for the kill with knight takes f7. Yeah, this is the engine might gives a black a slight advantage, but 1.7 or 1.5 is not a winning advantage, and it's super tricky to a human to defend than a computer. Of course, computers will take anything for free and defend and win the game. So after bishop to c4 check, then bishop to e6 seems logical. Black is up a piece, and black is trying to trade down the pieces as he is up a piece. But unfortunately for black here, after the trade happens, then queen takes g4 check. The position is super good for white. And white is good, it's due to this weak king. Yeah, black is up a piece, congratulations, but white got a couple of pawns for the piece, and also black king can't castle. And look at the king on e7, it is miserable, right? The bishop can't go to g7, and black development is super hard. Then here white plays knight to c3, just trying to jump to the d5 and deliver a deadly check on d5 to the black king. Then knight to f6, hitting the queen, but also defending the d5 square. So here queen takes f4 is the best move, and after bishop to g7, defending his knight, also preparing to bring his rook. Then we wanna play pawn to d4, just to open up this diagonal for the bishop and get all of our pieces into the game. So here after rook to f8, here we want to make sure that this king doesn't run to the safety. Like our main advantage here, you see that the engine gives white back the advantage. And why is that? We didn't make an obvious mistake for black, but the most logical moves are not coming super easy, so black most likely is going to go wrong. Now here we want to play pawn to e5 before this king runs to g8. So here after the trade happens, then black goes knight to d5, hitting the queen with the rook and with the knight, and guaranteeing to trade also one piece. So here queen to g3 was played, hitting the bishop, also hitting the knight, also preparing bishop to g5, and the position is just over for black. Now in the game, knight takes c3 happened, and after knight takes c3, if you take the bishop, then after rook to f7 is probably fine for black, although there is bishop to g5 and white is winning. But also white is just winning after the simple move bishop to g5, just winning the queen, and with it white is winning the game. So here there are really not much black can do. Black can play king to f7, but after bishop takes d8, rook takes d8, and white castles with check also, then it's going to be a checkmate pretty soon. So in this position, black tried to go bishop to f6, just trying to give away some material, but instead trying to be alive. But after the trade happens and pawn takes f6 and king takes f6, you can see this king is the only attacking piece for black with the knight. And yeah, the king is not really good. Actually, the engine gives mate in 10, but here the most easiest win is to just go queen to g5, skewering the black queen and the black king, and with it white is winning the game. Now after black takes on f4, there is this move which is bishop to c4, and Kasparov enjoyed played it actually so much, then he is allowing queen to h4 and inviting the lady to come quickly to his own place and his own territory after queen to h4 check. Now after queen to h4 check, then we play king f1. Of course, we don't want to put our king on e2 and play upon cloud. So here we want to play king f1, just sidestepping this queen. And the idea behind this whole, we are allowing black to go queen to h4 check and we lose our right to castle, is that because we will hit the queen so early and go pawn to d4. So here black goes bishop to c5, trying to deliver a checkmate on the f2 square. And now here we want to play pawn to d4, hitting the bishop, gaining a tempo, and also building a huge center early on in the game. So here bishop to b6, trying to put pressure at the same diagonal. And now we want to play knight to f3, again gaining another tempo on the queen, and try to develop as much as soon. Now the best move here is queen to e7, but you know what? Black is also trying to punish white for his pushing the f-pawn. He is going bishop to c4 and he moving his king on the opening. So white is violating a lot of opening principles, like we learned, as you keep your king castled and always keep your king safe. So he's just trying to punish white and goes queen to g4. He says, you know what, I am going to put pressure on you and I won't move from here. I will always try to defend this pawn and always try to put pressure on you as soon as possible. Now here there is this brilliant move, which is bishop takes f7, punishing the lady from being on g4. And now after king takes f7, then knight e5 is beautiful romantic royal fork here after king to e8, then queen takes g4, then of course white is winning. So let's come back to our main position. Now let's say after h4 they didn't go g4 and they played pawn to f6. Here there is a brilliant move, which is knight takes g5. And after knight takes g5, f takes g5, then here we are freeing up this h5 square for our queen to go to. This is the idea behind the sacrifice on g5. And now black goes king to e7 because it is his only move. And now queen takes g5. We have sacked the piece, but we will again walk this king down of the board. So of course the black king doesn't want to come upwards. He'll retreat back and say, please forgive me. But we won't. After queen to h5, check, then king to e7 again, And now queen to e5 check. First of all, you might be thinking that we are winning the rook here, but it's not really about the rook, it is about this big guy. We want to deliver checkmate. So after queen to e5, king f7, then here we want to get more pieces to the attack, so we play bishop to d5 check, and of course in case of d5 then we will take with our bishop and not taking with the pawn, as it will stop us from attacking. So here the only legal move for black is by going king to g6, and here we want to play pawn to h5, and after black plays his only move, which is king to h6, here we will again take another pawn on f4. Now here black might be thinking, okay, I will block the checks and maybe I will win the game as I have an extra bishop, but white goes, where is your extra bishop, and takes on f8. And now, of course, black's only move is to block again with the queen, and now you can choose rather to mate him with pawn to d3 or pawn to d4, but as you like it, and pawn to d4 is just a checkmate. Now, please make sure to check our latest video on the French defense if you want to punish or dominate your game against 1e4. Then make sure to check out the French video we did. It is a very super and solid line, and you might be thinking to play it. And goodbye.